I did grow up with pretty constant what they call suicidal ideation. So as a teenager, I suffered from pretty bad depression, and it's funny to say that I don't think I suffered from thinking about suicide. I just thought about it a lot, and as at certain points, I would get scared of my own thinking. Like it would be so front and center that it would be like, oh my God, what the heck is going on in here? And I wasn't from the kind of family where I was going to get therapy or even talk about it. So I just kind of muddled through as best I could. And and so if you had talked to me then about staying sane in a crazy world, I would have gone, I, I've got to be sane before I can stay there. I one evening just got absolutely bleak to the point where I was uncontrollably sobbing. And I I kind of knew that this was an extreme one. I mean, that happened to me from time to time. And I went down to the infirmary at my university where I was a student. And it was late. So I rang the night bell, and this nurse came out, this night nurse, and she just saw this kid sobbing on the steps outside. And she put her arm around me and just started rocking me back and forth. And this was in the South, in the American South. And she said, just say the Lord's Prayer with me, darling. Just say the Lord's Prayer with me, darling. And rocking me back and forth. And I I couldn't get it together to tell her that I only knew the Lord's Prayer because I'd been in a production of Jesus Christ Superstar. And so like that's one of the songs. But we went for it. And that sort of just simple caring really did me it calmed me down. And they brought me in, and they said, look, the doctor interviewed me, and so how long have you been feeling this way? Oh, about 5, 6 years, but it's only been really bad for the last 2 or 3. And and I'm thinking like, I'm reassuring the doctor, and the doctor's like, that doesn't sound great. And and so they sort of put me in a room, and they said, look, just why don't you settle in here, and then we'll get your details and put you in the system, and blah blah blah. When they shut the door, I had a moment of absolute clarity that a there was something up in here. Like I suddenly got, it might sound weird, I suddenly got this wasn't healthy, what was going on with me. But it wasn't scary in that moment to see that. It was actually almost a relief. I always liked, this is a funny thing to like, but if you go on Google funny epitaphs, things that people have on their gravestones, their tombstones. I always enjoyed doing that even as a kid. I mean, we didn't have Google back then, but and one of my favorite tombstones of all time just said, "I told you I was sick." And that's how I felt in that moment. It was like, oh, the reason that I'm struggling so much is because I got a problem. But in that quiet, in that moment of real clarity, I, for the first time in a while, I wasn't scared. And I just thought, I got to get out of here before they actually get my name. But it was an interesting moment of seeing that even when my head was crazy, even in the midst of a crazy world inside my head, there was a part of me that was really okay, that was really sane. And I had more moments like that. I had a moment that I talk about, and I did a TED talk called "Why Aren't We Awesomer?" that's been viewed by over 1 million people, which I still think is super cool. I probably shouldn't do that, but it's like, it's 1 million people. But I tell the story that I'm about to share, but it was about a week after that incident at the mental health facility where I had an experience in my dorm room that I can only describe as a giant vacuum cleaner from hell appearing outside my dormitory window on the 4th floor and trying to suck my heart out of my body. I don't think there really was a giant vacuum cleaner from hell there, but it really did feel like there was, to the point where I had to hold on to my dorm room wall to not get pulled out the window. It felt that strong. And there was a phone there, and I phoned the suicide hotline, and I got a busy signal. And I thought that was the funniest thing that had ever happened. Like, I just thought, short of a rain cloud bursting over my head in my dorm room, who calls the suicide hotline and gets a busy signal? And it just kind of popped me out of my head for a minute, and it popped me back into that quiet place, into that sort of place where I was still there, but I wasn't lost in it anymore. I was present in it, if that makes any sense. And I called a friend who came and got me, and I realized over the next couple of days that I didn't want to kill myself. And that was a shock, because I'd been thinking about it for years. And I suddenly went, oh, you can think stuff, but it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean, it's not a real thing. It's thought. It's taffy. It's Play-Doh. I don't know if you played with Play-Doh as a kid, but it's like you can make anything out of Play-Doh. And I just made scary pictures about a future where I killed myself. But it wasn't real. It was Play-Doh. It wasn't a documentary. It was a TV show. And I suddenly saw, oh my gosh, all of my thinking is like that. I think it's really real and serious and important, but it's all kind of random and arbitrary and noisy. And in those moments of real quiet, I could really hear the noise. Now, when I talk about staying sane, I'm talking about that quiet place in you, that quiet place in me. It's the same place, as best as I can figure out. Everybody has moments of it. And it doesn't mean there's nothing going on in your head. It just means it's just going on in your head. It doesn't overwhelm you. It doesn't look super real and important. It's just, yeah, we think. And that's our sanity. That's our mental health. In a spiritual description, they talk about it as home, going home or coming home. But what they also say is we're always already home. That quiet is here now. We just might not be paying attention to it.